Hi everyone. So my name is David Monahay. I'm the accessibility consultant for AcceDe here in Paris, and I'm going to talk about the AcceDe Web, which is a set of open source guidelines for actually practical accessibility guidelines for a real project, actually. So there's a lot of available guidelines already, and if you're into accessibility or if you already try to build a website or an application with some accessibility, you've been through WCAG, of course, which is an amazing guideline from OW2con'16. If you work for the American government, you have to go through the section 508, which is going to be replaced by WCAG at some point. We've been talking about it for like 3 or 4 years, I think. Of course, there's one in France, RJAA, and one in Quebec, and actually many, many more. And there are some guidelines, government guidelines all over the world, and they're all pretty much based on WCAG. The thing is that they are not for project management, and if you talk to a project manager or a web designer, they might have some issues mastering those guidelines because they're actually quite technical, and you have to go through a lot of different content to understand what kind of label should I put on this image or this button. So we've decided at some point, being accessibility experts, meaning that we had to work a lot with companies and make websites more accessible. And we've realized that in the project, it wasn't that easy to actually there wasn't any available guidelines to say that I have an issue and I want to fix it right now, but I have lots of issues to work on today, and accessibility is only one of them. So we've, sorry about that. We've gathered a bunch of French major companies into a workshop and asked them if they wanted to work with us on these guidelines to build the first set of web accessibility guidelines suited for project management. And by this I mean that they are project-oriented. So they are easy and understandable. You don't have to go, it's not, I mean, I love the WCAGs, and I go on there all the time, being an accessibility expert, of course, but I was in a web agency before I've joined AcceDe, and I had question all day about what should I do with the slideshow? How can I make it accessible? And AcceDe Web was really helpful because there was a paragraph about slideshows, and I just had to go through the code and tell my developers what to do and what was expected. They're really synthetic and operational, so every members of the team can go on a paragraph. Let me show you one of those. This is from the Design and UX guidelines, and that's the whole guideline for this matter. Actually, you have to provide skip links. So if you're a designer, all you want to do is remember to provide a skip link. And there's a tip, of course, saying that it doesn't have to be displayed on screen every time. And there's a screenshot to tell you what a skip link is. And that's all you will need to know at this point in the design process. They're adapted to development phases. So we've actually wrote 4 guidelines to make sure that we're adapted to every profile. Working on project teams, on web development projects, sorry. So the first one is for graphic and UX design, and it's completely code-free. I mean, there's not a single line of code in this one. There's just a few rules that you should check in your design process to make sure that you're not going to face issues in the next process of the production. Second one is for HTML and CSS, which are the basics codes and basics needs that mostly of all web project will need to go through. Third one is for rich interface applications. So it can be carousels, it can be tabs and things like that. So any patterns that are actually close to real applications and that we can find on the web, you'll find some information about how to make them accessible in this guideline. And of course, the fourth one, because you've been working on making an application and a website really accessible, you won't want to go back in 2 years and find out that it's not anymore because editors and contributors didn't know how to keep it accessible while updating the content. So we made a fourth one to make sure that those editors knew how to keep the website accessible. And of course, it's a template, so the idea is that you can download the template, change every screenshot depending on the CMS that you are using to make sure that your users will be comfortable reading those guidelines. And of course, being here today, it's open source, which means that you can use it however you need it to. So it can be split into pieces and put into your quality process, into your bug tracking process, or you could just send the link to your team and ask them to watch and then take a look. So I'm going to go through a few use cases, actually a really short one, to give you an idea of what are those guidelines and how to use them. This is one of the actual SciencePro websites, and I've been actually working on it while I was in an agency before joining AcceDe. And in the graphic and UX design guideline, we ask to provide different visual states for links. The rollover state is quite obvious, of course, but we also ask for the focus state to be designed. One reason is that you might not want the classic dotted border on your focus states, because might not be easy to read and to see on screen, especially in this content here. If we had the simple dotted border, it wouldn't be that easy to see that I'm focusing on something. So the designer did the rollover state and also did the focus state. And on the second guideline, the one for HTML and CSS, we asked the front-end developer, to make sure that the focus state is visible. So we make sure that this rule will be followed by two guidelines, and when the developer gets the mockups, the graphics design, he already has the state, so he doesn't even have to think about how to make it visible. It was already taken care of in the last stage of the project. Another case also involving designers, carousels. There's one very important guideline that says that you should provide a way to pause any animation on the screen, because it can be difficult to focus or you won't have the time to read in some circumstances. The thing, if you don't do it in the design stage, when it gets to the developer parts, he'll just try to add a button somewhere, but it might not cover the graphic design of the company you're working for. So again, in the graphic and UX design guidelines, we ask to provide a way to stop animations. So it's quite simple. And in this case, we just had to add a simple pause button. We had the client validate this pause button before we went into production. So everybody was okay on this matter. And in that fourth guideline, the rich interface application, we have a slide about slideshows. So we have all the basic HTML code, all the JavaScript and keyboard behaviors that is defined. We don't go into JavaScript code because you might want to use any kind of framework you want to use. We'll just say this is what is supposed to be happening and use your framework to do it as you want. One last case. On this website, we had some color issues. And those are the orange, pink, green, and blue colors are the colors of the client. And when our designer started working on the design, he knew he had to use those colors, but there's a rule saying that you should make sure that the contrast between text and background is high enough to be readable by everybody. So our designer used this simple color contrast analyzer tools that it's free to download online, and you have the link in the guideline to check all those colors. And well, we were failing on the orange, we were okay on the pink, failing on the green, and on the blue. So at the design stage, the design was able to warn the project manager and to go back to see the client and see, well, what should we do about this? Because we're not going to be accessible, fully accessible, if we keep those colors. So because we were in the design stage, it was actually really easy to simply ask the UX designer and the designer to sit together and find a way to add an enhanced contrast button in the website interface. So we've just added, validated with the client, and anybody now on the website can switch colors to darker colors that will be more visible. So that's it. Actually, it was quite faster than the two previous ones. The whole idea about AcceDe Web is having the right information when needed. So on all stage of the production process, it can be transformed into a checklist for each project steps. Once the project manager gets the designs, you can go through the AcceDe Web guideline and just check if everything is okay. Did I provide a breadcrumb? Did I check the colors? Is everything okay for the next team to be actually just focusing on developing the website and they won't have to go back into a design stage? It's an easy way to include everybody in the team into accessibility issues and accessibility optimization efforts. If you ask a web designer to go through the WCAG notice guidelines, and he might be a bit lost. It's going to the design guidelines from AcceDe Web is actually quite simple, and it's just a set of rules that actually going to help all the team make the website a lot more accessible, which is really important. And of course, it can be, like I said earlier, adapted to fix any existing quality process. So you can use every guidelines and every recommendation into whatever quality process you have going on. So you can find those guidelines on AcceDe.info. The thing is, the English version is available, but it's not the most up to date. We are currently working on translating the French version to have an up-to-date version. If you're interested or participating, or just you want to know if when the English version will be updated, just send us an email at contact@AcceDe.info. I'll be happy to let you know about that. Just for information, we also did the same work, and actually the first work was on PDFs documents. And we have AcceDe PDF that covers accessibility for PDF and Office's document like Word and PowerPoint. So that's it for me for today. Thank you very much.